Okay, everyone, seems like we've got about 50 participants on the webinar, so I think we're going to start. So thank you very much for joining us today. We at the Nurture Nature campaign are really excited to present this webinar on the Preventative Parrot Care for you today. It's presented by Dr. Kavita Sant. We are an NGO coalition-based campaign, and today one of our fantastic NGOs is joining us, the Trinidad and Tobago Veterinary Association. So just hi, thank you for having us, TNT Vet Association. And also we'd like to send our appreciation to our donors, the US Fish and Wildlife Service and USAID, the Agency for International Development. So we'll just get started. So what are we talking about today? Today we'll be going to hear from an expert on veterinary care for parrots in Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidad and Tobago has a long-held practice of keeping captive parrots, and many parrots are kept across the country. And this matters to us deeply at the Nurture Nature campaign. Why? Well, because there are very harmful trades in parrots all over the world. Parrots belong to the bird order Psittaciformes, and they're one of the most common bird orders found in the wildlife trade globally and locally. They're also one of the most threatened bird orders according to the IUCN. These birds are taken from the wild at high rates and widely kept in often cruel and woefully inadequate conditions. While remaining wild populations face a number of threats due to human activity. We know the trade can be mostly deadly and abusive, especially in Latin America and the Caribbean. There are high mortality rates linked to hypovitaminosis A, a condition that Dr. Kavita Sant will expound on a bit later. And there's a high mortality rate before sale. One study in Mexico found that the overall mortality rate for trapped parrots exceeds 75% before even reaching purchasers. So this works out to be about 50 to 60,000 dead parrots a year in Mexico alone. What's also interesting is studies have shown that since the late 90s and early 2000s, with the US and Europe implementing bans on importing parrots, the local markets within Latin America and the Caribbean now make up the bulk of this trade. So whereas before the exports would have been the driving force behind this trade, now we are the driving force behind this very harmful trade. Another issue that many persons don't consider is the impact of the trade on the environment. In the Caribbean, there are currently 12 types of Amazon parrots and only 3 types of parakeets. And 1 type of macaw, including, if you are going to include the reintroduced blue and gold in Trinidad and Tobago. Historically, there's been a pattern of extinction here, with macaws all but gone from the West Indies, and we've lost most of our parakeets, and about 1/3 of the parrots are gone. And parrots are very important seed dispersers in our tropical forests, and we cannot afford to lose them any further. Remaining populations face threats like previously mentioned habitat loss and poaching, as well as natural disturbances like hurricanes and even volcanic eruptions like the St. Vincent Amazon parrots, as well as competition and predation from introduced species. And more recently, there is a large risk from introduced disease from imported exotic parrots from the harmful pet trade. This is all exacerbated by the reproductive biology of parrots, which is generally described as having low rates of reproduction. Moving forward, why do we care about parrots, and why are we having this presentation? While we understand that, yes, we don't want people keeping wild-caught parrots, there are so many here in Trinidad and Tobago, and these birds simply can't be released back into the wild because they were taken from their nest when they were just so young. So why are we talking about this? Let's really consider the numbers. So that poll you did earlier, we'll see what it looks like. in Trinidad and Tobago, there is approximately 200,000 parrots in captivity, but this is inclusive of budgies and other semi-domestics as well. We, the Nurture Nature campaign, in collaboration with the Trinidad and Tobago Central Statistics Office, Michigan State University, and the Windward Island Research and Education Foundation, did a national survey that was done in 2019, and it surveyed 2,004 households in Trinidad and Tobago. So this is how we got these estimates. So our numbers actually show 196,793 parrots, or just under 200,000 parrots, inclusive of semi-domestics, are kept in Trinidad and Tobago, a country that's roughly 1.3 million people. So this works out to about an average of 1 parrot in every other household in Trinidad and Tobago. More than half of the captive birds are macaws, and large volumes are wild caught. More than half of the birds are captive bred and large volumes are wild caught. If you were to look at the pie chart in front of you, you'll see that discounting budgies and the other semi-domestics like the lovebirds and cockatiels, you'll see that the orange ring Amazon makes up a large portion of this, as well as other macaws. This is really important to us because a lot of these birds are kept in inadequate conditions. So this is why we care. Also, these numbers are very conservative estimate, of course, as household surveys have usually underreported. For example, during our piloting, one young man came outside while his father was doing the survey and outed his dad for having the parrot in the back that he hadn't mentioned while we were asking him. So, of course, these are very conservative numbers. So to talk to us today about parrot care, we have Dr. Kavita Sant. So we want to know, sorry, I lost my train of thought. So with that, we know it's important to keep these parrots out of the trade, but we also know that we have to have tremendous amounts of compassion for these really intelligent, impressive birds that are currently kept. So to ensure that we keep them well taken care of properly, we have Dr. Kavita Sant, who is today going to tell us how to do that. So she's going to be telling us how to prevent harm and increase care in the parrots in Trinidad and Tobago. Dr. Kavita Sant is the owner and founder of Exotic Pets Plus Veterinary Clinic in Cuba. She's trained under Dr. Gabrielle Brown and Dr. Johnson, lecturers in the Avian Exotic Department in the Faculty of Medical Sciences in the University of the West Indies, and she has 6 years providing clinical treatments to avian, reptile, and small mammal species. So I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Kavita Sant.
Hi, my name is Dr. Kavita Sant. I think I just need to be made host so I can share my screen.
Sure, one moment.
No problem. I'll just start talking. So my name is Dr. Kavita Sant, as you stated previously. Thanks for taking your time to attend our webinar, and I hope that you all learn lots. So today, we would like to talk to you about the preventative parrot care measures, some preventative parrot care measures. And what we're about to cover is a broad overview of the factors that can result in birds becoming ill.
Dr. Sant, you should be able to share screen.
Okay. Everybody seeing? All right, is everybody okay? So we want to focus on don't buy wild, species appropriate diets, healthy cage environments, mental health management, and taking your pet to the vet. So let's focus on don't buy wild. The first step to keeping parrots from suffering is to avoid wild-caught birds. A large number of these birds are smuggled into Trinidad and Tobago from South America, and many of them die during capture and transport due to horrible conditions like overcrowding and unsanitary conditions. They even get thrown overboard, as seen here, by the smugglers trying to avoid detection by law enforcement, and some of them drown to death. How horrific. I mean, could you imagine? So this is a small clip showing the birds being smuggled.
Yeah.
I think we could all agree the conditions are horrible, and many of them more than likely are going to die within the week of being captured. There are many disadvantages to owning these smuggled birds, such as they can become aggressive towards you, they don't permit handling and bonding, they may not adapt well to captive environments, they will refuse to eat and drink, and they can die from this. Due to long and stressful transports, many come to the country and they are ill. They have deficiency diseases, malformations, or may become deformed from being packed into small areas. They carry infectious diseases that not only can be transmitted to other animals and other birds, but they have something called zoonoses, which are diseases that can be transmitted to humans as well, like chlamydiosis and salmonellosis. And they're illegal to own. And if you are found with these animals, the wildlife officials can confiscate them. So let's focus on some animals that can be legally owned, such as the canary, the cockatiel, the budgie, and the lovebirds. The advantage of these is there is no special permit required. They're more easily trained and more resistant to local diseases. If you take a look here, the lifespans of captive bred species average between 5 to 15 years. So the budgie is 5 to 10, canary is 10 to 12, cockatiels could be 10 to 14, and the lovebirds 10 to 15. These permit, these are better to keep captive because they will live for your lifetime. But the other birds, such as the blue and gold macaw, green parrot, red and green macaw, and the Veterinary parrots, they live between 50 to 80 years. So these birds not only live for your lifetime, but can span generations. As such, special consideration must be given to whether these larger birds are suitable for you. Do you think that when you pass away, do you think that they are going to be able, the people taking the birds from you, or your children, your grandchildren, do you think they'll be able to take care of these birds? If you decide yes, and you are interested in owning these parrots, we recommend that you get them from certified breeders. These certified breeders are registered by the Forestry Division and are allowed to breed and sell these species. Evidence that they have been captive bred is the placement of a closed ring on the leg of the bird. These rings can only be placed on very, very young birds. Usually the birds are less than 2 weeks of age for them to be able to place this ring. If you do want to own these birds, I also recommend that you obtain a permit for these birds, as they require a protected animal species permit, which is only issued by the Forestry Division. One of the most important things to do when you own a bird is to manage the diet. In Trinidad, we make the most common mistakes in feeding is bread and milk when they're young and sunflower seeds when they're old. And because of this nature, our nature to feed them these things, they end up getting extremely ill. Countless number of young birds have come in with numerous diseases, deficiency and infectious, because they've been fed this diet, as well as the older birds coming in because they're only being fed sunflower seeds. Now, bread and milk the milk cannot even be digested, as they don't have the lactase enzyme. The flour and milk actually cause them to develop allergies later on in life. They lack vitamins and proteins and reduces the immune system, stunts their growth, among other things. The sunflower seeds has no nutritional value really. It's just a large amount of fat you feed in the bird, and they end up developing tumors, or they end up developing deficiency diseases, and that predisposes them to get sick. Today, I want you all to be able to understand the importance of the vitamin A, protein, calcium, phosphorus, and vitamin deficiencies in the diet, and to identify when birds are deficient and how it affects their health. So firstly, vitamin A is the most common deficiency. It causes something called squamous cell metaplasia. So that's just a big term for basically the epithelial cells or the cells that line the digestive, respiratory, reproductive, renal, and skin systems don't form properly. This first layer is usually a barrier to infection. So what's going to happen is you're going to get a lowered immune system. Also, dried skin, dull coloration of the feathers, a recurrent infection and appetite loss, among many other things. As you can see here, this bird has not only very dry, scaly feet, but also has very dull coloration of her feathers. Secondly, protein. Protein is not only a building molecule, but it also is a carrier molecule. So when you don't have enough protein in the blood, what ends up happening is there's no carrier molecule to take the vitamin A and other minerals and vitamins from the digestive system to the target sites. So you actually get a low vitamin A level because of our low protein level. So that's why I'm saying it's very important to balance it. You could see malformation of the feathers, stunted growth, abnormal wing pigmentation, reduced fertility, and a lowered immune system, again, because of the hypovitaminosis A. It also stops the production of a lot of the immune molecules like immunoglobulins and stuff like that and gets them ill. A lot more conditions can be caused by protein deficiency, but these are some of the most common. This bird here has a malformed beak, as well as the feathers that are seen on the shoulder of the parrots. They're just supposed to be green. Because there's a protein deficiency, you actually see these black bars or ridges along the lining of the feathers. So that's one way you know, okay, yes, there is a protein deficiency. You could also tell there's a concurrent vitamin A deficiency because look at this blue and this yellow. They aren't as bright as they should be. The feet are also scaly and dry. We would like to move on to calcium, phosphorus, and vitamin D imbalance. So these molecules are needed for bone, beak, and nail strength, and for the smooth muscle contraction. So what's going to end up happening, you're going to get abnormally shaped bones, beaks, or nails. You can get weakness, reduced fertility, tremors or seizures, and egg binding in birds that are mating. Now, it's important to note that this can be also caused by a lack of sunlight, as sunlight is needed for the vitamin D in the diet to be converted into an active form for the body to be able to use it. This picture here, we see a baby cockatiel ended up with a lower limb deformity because the mother did not have enough calcium phosphorus in the diet. So what ends up happening is these birds are born with very, very weak bones and ends up splayed. Just to reiterate, vitamin A, protein, calcium, fiber, fats, among other things, needs to be balanced appropriately to ensure that parrots and other birds attain longevity, happiness, and good health. Here's an example of some stuff with some vitamin E in it. So we have the bell peppers, pumpkin, pawpaw, carrots, cantaloupe, and sweet potato. So we generally say red, yellow, orange, and green fruits and vegetables are high in vitamin A and are natural sources of these vitamins. Now, these dark green leafy vegetables also have the advantage that they also have vitamin D and some calcium phosphorus in them as well. The next point I would like to move into is a healthy cage environment. So another factor that contributes to the health of the animal is the housing, as well as the internal and external environmental conditions. Birds that are captive are limited to the environments which we have placed them in. As a result, it is our duty to make sure that they are as comfortable as possible. These things include cage doors that allows comfortable exit and entrance. The cages must be wide enough for a full wing expansion for each species. It must also allow for comfortable flight. You do not want to house these animals near kitchens, and we'll discuss why in a little minute. And you want to keep them away from excessive dust and smoke. I'm sure a lot of the guys who own bullfinches and stuff will know mosquito control prevents pox. You want to make sure there are no loose wires. If you take a look at the picture here, this blue and gold macaw is being caged in a not so great cage, and a loose wire actually stabbed him in his neck or his nose, and there's some bleeding. So you want to make sure and avoid any loose wires. Loose wires could also be ingested as well, so be very, very careful with the cage that you have them in. We want to avoid the rust in the cages, and I'll tell you why shortly, why we need to change the cages as soon as they rust out. And in terms of the internal conditions now, one of the most important things is perch placement. Ensure that the perch is not in an area which allows the bird to defecate in their food and bowl waters. Food and water bowls, because what ends up happening is they could defecate in them, eat their feces, and they could get sick from that. One of the most common problems we get, we actually have a case for those following Exotic Pets Plus on Facebook and Instagram. We have a case of heavy metal poisoning. This is a very common thing. As you can see here, birds use their beaks to get around, they not only use their wings or their feet, but they also use their beaks. And when they use their beaks to move around on the cage, they ingest small particles of rust. And over time, that becomes stored in the gizzard, and they end up getting heavy metal poisoning as it seeds into the bloodstream. This is often fatal and requires immediate veterinary intervention. Without it, they will die. They not only get it from the rusty cages, but lead-based paints, ingested metallic objects like coins, costume jewelry, bells, and chains. So sometimes when they start to dismantle their toys, it's time to change them out as well. So you ask me, how do I know if my bird has this? Well, they might show signs of tremors, seizures, they might vomit or regurgitate, and they may lose weight and stop eating. Another dangerous thing we have is birds that are housed in or near kitchens and persons cooking with non-stick pans. Personally, if you are to own a bird, I would advise strongly against owning non-stick pans or cooking with non-stick pans, as it causes PFTE poisoning or teflon poisoning. What happens is when you heat up the pan, the teflon is released into the air and it is inhaled by the birds, and it causes fatal conditions. Some birds, even if you get them to the vet, they may not survive. That's how dangerous owning these things are and cooking with these things are when you have a bird. So signs are tremors, severe respiratory illness, and sometimes you just find the bird passed away in the cage. So we don't usually think of animals experiencing mental problems, but the more intelligent an animal is, the higher risk there is for these kind of issues. And while they're allowed to forage, eat to meet their demands, fly long journeys, avoid predators, interact socially with other birds, find their mates, and basically all this is diminished, if not lost, when they are placed into captivity. They are allowed to gorge themselves on high energy foods such as the sunflower seeds, and they have no way of displacing this excess energy. They also experience diseases in captivity, which they would not have experienced in the wild. All of these conditions contribute to the development of obsessive behaviors, like feather destructive behavior seen here, and conditions like aggression. So how can we help avoid this? Providing a balanced diet will not only prevent disease, but it will also keep their energy levels low enough so that they will not use that excessive energy to do preening or trying to attack people and stuff like that. Purchase and teach your birds how to use foraging toys. We'll see an example of this in the next slide. You want to rotate toys that are purchased so that they don't get bored. Don't buy a set and just give them all at once. They're like children. They'll get bored and they wouldn't be interested in it. So make sure you rotate them regularly. You want to mimic social interactions. You could do this by placing a mirror on the outside of the cage, and they may perceive that as another bird. You also want to engage in activities both you and your bird can enjoy. Ensure that you regularly visit your vet for disease screening and diet evaluation. So here we see pictures of two different things. Cup stacking on the left-hand side is an activity both you and your bird can enjoy. And on the right-hand side, this is a foraging tool, which allows birds to choose what they want to eat, but they also have to work for it. It is of utmost importance to visit your veterinarian regularly, as birds are prey species. They hide signs of illness in the wild, as they would appear weak and will become a target. So they use it as a survival technique. So when we actually get birds coming in and they are sick, they actually much more poorly off than if they were to come in without these signs. So trained, experienced veterinarians will be able to handle, examine, and detect the processes even before they start to show signs. So at our clinic at Exotic Pets Plus, we recommend quarterly checks to detect the underlying or apparent disease processes going on. We evaluate and adjust the dietary and housing needs of the individual animal or group of animals as need be. So these are just some examples of when we need to go to the vet. So the first picture is an oral abscess. This bird was being fed a sunflower seed diet. As a result, the immune system dropped and there was infection in the air of the bird. So what ends up happening is not only infection, but the epithelial cells that I mentioned before, they slough, or they fall off until they form this big mass, hard mass that has to be surgically removed. Something as simple as managing the diet better would have avoided the situation. The second picture was of a blue and gold macaw that got caught in some string. So be aware of those things in the environment. It actually cut off circulation to the limb and the limb died. So we had to remove the leg. The third picture is this bird is severely underweight. If you focus on the keel bone here, you can actually see that the keel bone or the chest bone is prominent. Means that there's weight loss and muscle loss going on. The bird is also dehydrated. If you look at the toes, you actually see they're very dry, and you actually see the knuckles printing out. The bird is also experiencing some sort of vitamin A deficiency, as you can see by the dry, scaly feet as well. Other examples include severe feather loss in a budgie, respiratory illness in a bird, the eyes are closed, there is discharge from the nose seen by the wet feathers on the side, and a generally puffed up appearance. And one of the killers of birds is candidiasis. So when you open the beak of a bird and you see inside a head, this is called the choanal slit. This slit joins the oral cavity to the nasal cavity, and hair builds up with a fungus, well, a yeast that causes the bird to be very uncomfortable and not be able to eat. And this causes a whole cascade of events to cause them to depreciate and then pass away. So if you're asking, who can we go to? So there's me, Dr. Kavita Sant of Exotic Pets Plus Veterinary Clinic. That's my number there. I'm located in Vancouver. We also provide house calls as well. There's Samara Sequel, right? And she's located in East and Central Trinidad. There's Dr. Avinash Rambisoon, who is located in Freeport, Trinidad. There's Doctors Lisa Maraj and Janelle Johnson, Mounto. And there's Dr. Todd Danoon if you're located in Tobago. Thank you for your attention, and I hope you learned a lot. Do you all have any questions for me?
Hi everyone, so you can open your Q&A section in the settings below, and you should be able to ask your questions there. Also, we'll be receiving questions from Facebook as well. So thank you so much, Kavita. This was a fantastic presentation. I'm sure the whole audience learned a lot. I certainly did. Thank you for your time, and we will be putting up all of this information. The recording as well as the Facebook Live will be available on our social media accounts as well as our website. So if anyone didn't get the whole presentation, no worries, we can always get that. So yes, we're open for Q&A for a little bit. We still have some time before the schedule is closed, so please feel free to ask any questions you've got. You can target them to Dr. Kavita Sant as well as us at the Nurture Nature campaign. So everyone should be able to see the poll results. So most people thought that there were between 10 to 100,000 birds, parrots in captivity in Trinidad and Tobago. But as we learned in the presentation, the number is actually closer to 200,000 parrots. So everyone was off by a significant amount. Let's see what we did get. We got a few people got it right, but yeah, most people, you definitely underestimated how many parrots we have in Trinidad and Tobago in captivity. This underlines how important Dr. Sand's presentation was today. Let's see, do we have any questions? We've got Q&A questions. So some of these questions are directed to you, Dr. Sant. Can you still, are you still muted or unmuted, I should say?
Hi, okay, yes. So do you all want me to just take over from the questions? Yeah.
Sure, so let's see, we've got Q&A questions. Oh, there they are.
Hi, okay, so I'm Lauren Alley. I'm also a co-manager of Nurture Nature. Neve is having a little bit of technical difficulty right now, so I'm going to read some of the questions from the Q&A, and Dr. Sant should be able to answer them. So, first question. Someone asks, they would like tips on how to get a cage-bound parrot out of the cage if it already trusts you and holds your hand in the cage. So this is really a behavioral issue. They're trying to get a parrot that spends a lot of time in its cage to come out and experience the world.
Okay, so in relation to that question, first and foremost, carry that bird inside when you are trying to train him or her, because she will more than likely fly away if she gets startled. So first of all, carry her and the cage indoors and start training her by letting her go on her finger. You're doing the right stuff, talking to her gently. Do not rush the process. Do not just try and grab her, because she will lose trust, and then that's going to be a whole issue. So once she allows you to let her come up on your hand, you could try and bring her out of the cage. If she's still uncomfortable, give her time. Also, feeding her outside of the cage, like hand feeding her, will help as well. So it's just a matter of you and her building trust and slowly but surely getting her to come out. There may have been something that caused her to be afraid to come out of the cage. Like, you know, if it is a bird that may have been brought in through illegal means, she may have been traumatized by, I don't know, if she saw another bird getting hit, like if it was coming out to the cage during transport or stuff like that. So I'm not sure if that could have contributed to it, but yeah, just build trust, start letting her go up on your finger, and then after that, hand feeding. After hand feeding, let her come out on her own, leave the cage open indoors, as I said, with all the windows and doors locked, because birds will fly. And once she starts coming out on her own, you know, do little exercises, do little activities where you and her could bond, and that will make her more comfortable.
Great answer. Okay. Next question taken from the chat. Can we repaint a rusted cage?
I strongly advise against it because they're going to just bite off the paint and get to the rust anyway. So no, that's not a good idea.
In the Q&A, we have a question. Hi, can you expand on the diet as it relates to protein? We've had a few people ask about protein. So can you expound on that, Dr. Sant?
No problem. So birds are omnivorous. They don't just need plant material. They also need some animal material as well. If you are vegetarian and you do want to avoid feeding the birds meat or eggs or stuff like that, we do recommend, you can go for things like amaranth or quinoa and stuff like that. Cooked or uncooked, it doesn't matter. And in terms of animal sources, eggs, meat, if you eat chicken, throw in a drumstick after you finish. They could eat the cartilage, get something for their joints. They could crack the bone, eat the bone marrow, get a lot of vitamins from that. And whatever little meat is left, they could also eat those things. If you are cooking food for them, make sure you avoid putting salt and stuff in it, salt and excessive seasonings, because that could have an alternate effect on their health. That's in terms of the protein sources. So protein, as we know, is needed for muscle. It's also needed as a building molecule for your other parts of your body. So if you don't have protein, you're not going to get big and strong, basically. And the other thing with protein is it's like a bus stop, right? So when you eat, all the vitamins and minerals and everything from the food goes from the stomach, passes down the intestine, where these vitamins and minerals are absorbed into the bloodstream. And in order for the vitamins and minerals to go to their target sites, for them to work, for them to have the health benefits, they need to get on that bus. And the bus is the protein. So if you don't have the protein, they're just going to stay there and they're going to get excreted out. So you could give all the vitamins and minerals you want. If there's not enough protein in the body for that to be carried to the active sites, it's like you're not giving them anything at all. So you're just making them poop out their vitamins. So that's the importance of protein.
Great. And we have a few other questions. We have one person asking what to feed a baby parrot if not bread and milk.
Right, so take that bread and milk and you could throw it in a fire and burn it and then bury it after. So yes, that's my feelings on bread and milk. The best thing is there are hand feeding formulas available in the pet stores. There is the Rowdy Bush, there's Supreme, there's Katie's. There is a number of different brands of hand feeding formula that are available at these pet stores that you can purchase. If you don't like the ones locally, you could also order online via Amazon, and those are more, they're healthy and they are catered to a specific species of bird, their specific needs. So I would advise that. And when you're mixing your food, it is very important that you use warm water, not hot water, because that could burn through your crop. And do not use milk. As I said previously, they cannot digest it, so don't feed them that.
Great, we've got a few other questions. Someone is asking about caging material. So what would you advise to build a cage for a macaw? There's assuming that BRC mesh might get rusty. Do you have any recommendations?
We usually use some stainless steel. There's some rabbit mesh that they use, the ones that they use for the babies, the cages for the babies. Can't exactly remember the name of it, but those are the things that we recommend that you use. And there are pre-made cages that are much better for them. It's the sizes that you will need as well, and those are more recommended. Also, when you're cleaning your cage is a big part of preventing rust. So wiping down rather than spraying the cage and letting it dry will help prevent the rusting as well and help you have a cage last a longer time.
Great. We have a few other parrot medical questions. So we have one person asking about deworming parrots and what do you advise? Right.
So any medical advice, if you would like to discuss that, I advise that you call us and you talk to us via the clinic because each case is different. Parrots wild caught and parrots captive are dewormed differently, and we do not advise you give any medicine to your parrots without first talking to your veterinarian, because you could get the dose wrong, you could get the concentration wrong, and you could end up killing your parrots. So I will not be able to give them that information unless they come to the clinic.
Okay, so recommendations would be go to the vet. Great. We have a few other questions. Let's see. We have one person says that their friend has a bird that has no feathers on his chest, only his wings, and he seems fine, but except for that. Do you have any reasonings behind why that might be?
Right. So feather loss, it's considered feather loss, and it's considered something wrong with the bird when a patch is missing. Now, as we all know, birds do molt early in the year, like between January to March, and very late in the year from like November to December. Outside of this, it's abnormal. And patches missing means it's abnormal. So a number of things could cause this, from bacterial to fungal to psychological to even neurological and allergy-related stuff. So the bird needs to get checked out before I could give any further advice with respect to that. But yes, something is wrong with the bird.
Okay, great. Someone also asked, I guess this might be more of a behavioral problem. This one person says, their parrot was rescued as an adult, and it seems her previous owners might have had her on a sunflower seed diet, and they've been trying to get her to eat other foods, but she won't eat. And even if she does, she won't eat much. She just lets them drop to the bottom of her cage. How can they get her to eat a healthier diet?
Slow and steady wins the race for that one. So what you have to do is slowly introduce other foods while decreasing the amount of sunflower seeds. Right. So if you go cold turkey and you just decide one day to give him a banana and you don't give him any seeds, he's going to starve himself. So what you're going to have to do is try different foods and continuously try different foods with him to see what he's eating. So say you give him a cup of sunflower seeds, which is a big no-no. Give him a half cup of the sunflower seeds and give him like a half cup of peanuts. See if he eats that, because it's similar kind of texture and stuff like that. So try him like that, and then you try him with some other thing, and then try him with some other thing, and whatever he likes, you make a note of it and add to the list and rotate. And as he eats more of the other stuff, you could reduce the sunflower seeds.
Okay, great. We have a question in the chat. So this one person says they make oat cereal for their bird, and they want to know if that is as bad as bread and milk.
If you put milk in it, yes. Also, the oats, birds develop an allergy later on in life to things like oats and gluten containing substances. So I would say that's a no-no. As much as possible, try and stick to more natural stuff, because oats and stuff don't grow in where they are in the forest. So try and stick to more fruits and vegetables and stuff like that.
One question from Facebook says, what can I do to my parrot so my parrot is less aggressive to other birds?
Well, you have to consider if that's just his nature. Some parrots are more aggressive than others. Sometimes it is that he might be seeing you giving him more attention to other birds, and he's trying to vie for your attention or be the dominant one. He might be a male parrot and it may be mating season. There's a number of different things, but you'll have to determine why he's being aggressive before you determine how to fix it.
Great, thanks, Dr. Sant. We have one question here. My parrot regurgitates her food, not always, but only when I go by her. She gets really happy, talks and holds my finger, then brings up her food, but she seems very happy. Is this a large concern for you, or as she only does this with her, is it a problem?
Okay, so parrots, when they really, really love their owner, they sometimes take their owner as their mate. So the parrot is basically say, I love you, I could feed you, you are my girlfriend, vomit. So that's basically what's going on. I don't really think it's anything pathological if it's only with you. Okay,
is there any way that they could, I guess, reduce this behavior, or is it just now? I mean, it's not harmful unless you just clean up yourself after. If you break that bond, remember, these birds are psychological as well. They have psychological problems as well. If you break that, there's a chance that he'll start picking. So, I mean, if it's not bothering you, you could also spend less time with him or have him bond to somebody or something else. Let's see, do we have any other questions?
An important question that I'm seeing here is, how often should a parrot owner visit the vet, and what does a vet visit entail?
Okay, so I can speak for my clinic. We provide not only for you to come to us, but we could also come to you in terms of the house calls, because I know a lot of bird owners are afraid to travel with their birds and stuff like that. So we come to you or you come to us. When you come in, we do a full consultation, meaning we take the full history of the bird. We do a full physical exam. We also use a speculum to check in the mouth and do an oral examination. And based on what we find, what we see, there will be an additional cost if we have to do any further testing if something is wrong, or there'll be an additional cost to treat if we find anything wrong. So our consultation and physical examination fees are $150. Oh, you also get a diet sheet along with that. So yeah, $150.
Great. We have one question, one concerned parrot owner. They said, in terms of the milk and diet, they too have fallen prey to the culture of milk. Their birds still eat nestum and warm milk every day, and they squawk until they get it. So they're 2 years old, but in addition to the nestum, they also give them fresh fruits and veggies every day. Do they stop the milk and nestum feeding completely, or can I keep the nestum and omit the milk?
I would change the nestum. There's different types of nestum. So the most, if I had to go with a nestum, there's nestum 3, 5, or 7 cereals. The cereal has more vitamins, more fiber. It's more nutritionally balanced than the others. Say the honey and oat and the fruits, those aren't as balanced. Those are just sugar. So I would more go with the nestum 3 or nestum 5 and use warm water. If you want to add something to, make it a little more bulky, they could add a little peanut butter to it if they would like.
Oh, I never would have thought of peanut butter.
Yeah,
we have protein. We have one question on harness training adult birds and tips for free flight.
Well, I don't have much experience in terms of that, so I would not be able to answer that question, unfortunately. But there are a lot of online sources that will be able to give you a lot more information.
Okay, great. Let's see, are there any other questions? If anyone has any questions that we haven't asked, please haven't answered, please feel free to ask. You can drop it in the Q&A or in the chat. But quickly, in terms of the free flight, you might just want to remember that it is a high-risk activity in relation to power lines, or if the bird gets startled, it might be hard for them to come back down. So just be mindful of that when attempting free flight. We have one question. Can you rehabilitate a parrot that's been captive to return to the wild?
It depends on how long they've been kept in captivity. If they've learned to eat from a bowl and eat certain things like human foods, then I would say no. Chances are they will not be able to forage and survive in the wild. But that is probably a question more for rehab centers than for vets.
Yes, generally I believe the answer would be no, but we will follow up perhaps with Ricardo Mead of El Socorro Wildlife Center. He might have a better take on that answer, and we will put that resource in our on our website along with this webinar. We have one question. Why does my parrot make lots of noise when they can't see me?
Because they like you. So they're like, hey, come back.
Oh,
yeah. We have one in the clinic right now with the heavy metal poisoning. I don't know if you all saw on Facebook. She's in love with my husband. So she'll make this whole bacchanal when she's here. When he's leaving, she will literally scream until the place is shaking. And when I'm there, she's utterly silent. So yeah, it's because they like you. And when they're silent, they don't.
So take it as a compliment.
Yeah.
We have one question about them drinking water.
Yes, they do.
Yes, so they do drink water, and we should change the water bowl often. Yes.
If you can, twice a day. If not, at least every day. And make sure you scrub out the bowl so mold and stuff doesn't start to build up in it. Remember, sometimes they dip fruit and everything in there and make soup, which is kind of gross. So make sure you clean out the bowls as best as possible.
Great. So thank you so much, Dr. Sant. I think we'll probably direct a few of the questions about importing parrots and the trade to Mark Gibson. He can answer a few of those questions.
Excellent.
So Mark, we have one question. Would you recommend less people actually own parrots, etc.? And should forestry have stricter measures as to granting of licenses? Also, what security measures do we have in place for illegal importations?
Okay, wow. A few questions there. That's really interesting. So, should you just ever have a parrot? It's really complicated. I think the birds that are bred regularly in captivity, like budgies, lovebirds, canaries, even a cockatiel, these are pretty good candidates if you want to get a bird. You know, they don't live that long compared to a macaw. They're really affectionate, great animals to have. You do still have a lot of care requirements involved. You know, parrots are highly social, highly energetic animals. So I think parrots are. It's not quite like getting a dog. You're gonna really need to put in time if you're gonna do right by the animal. So I think in theory, yeah, people can absolutely have some parrots. But others, you know, it's just many people aren't necessarily going to be cut out to be the best owners from a real long term perspective. And that's even more so the case if it's a wild caught bird with all the issues that come along. Um, for permitting, it is, as I understand it, any bird beyond those that we mentioned earlier do require what's called a protected animal permit to have in captivity. And that's a special application to Forestry Division. They're going to ask you where you got it. You know, they really don't want to see that people are trafficking and buying traffic animals. So I think there are a lot of people who won't get the permit just because of the origin. So there are Albert Panton, for instance, will breed an African Greys. And I visited with him and seen that operation. And so there are a few people in Trinidad and Tobago that breed them, but almost entirely, you just really should not ever get a macaw or an Amazon parrot, as radical as that may sound. And the most common Amazon parrot is the orange wing Amazon, or otherwise known as the local green parrot. And lastly, yeah, there's zoonotic disease risk, or otherwise the question was, what sort of import controls do we have? It's not bad on paper. There is the Animal Act, which requires any animal imported to be seen and inspected, but almost all these animals come in illegally trafficked. I'm talking macaws and Amazons for the most part. They're trafficked in through South Trinidad, and they're really not going to be subject to any sort of health and sanitary controls. We hear a lot from people that we speak to and involved in the trade how really large numbers of these die. We don't know if it's quite as high yet as the mortality has been reported in Mexico, up to 75% before even selling to consumers. But it's very high here. So that's where it's just, if you're going to get a parrot, budgies, lovebirds, cockatiel, canary. Canary's not a parrot, but it's another great bird. And so there, I'll pause there, Lauren.
All right, great. And one more policy question. How does one report abuse of a parrot?
Wow, that's a really good question. That is, I've spoken recently to Forestry Division, and they're in the process of setting up a reporting system where you could have TT Crime Stoppers Trinidad and Tobago, which is an internationally reputable NGO that allows anonymous reporting of any sorts of crimes. And they're very interested in taking reports on any sort of animal abuse, wildlife trafficking, and you can make that to them very anonymously. In fact, it's so anonymous that they can't even reach you back. You get a special PIN code to be able to call and find out updates if you only want. But those sorts of reports will get passed on to Forestry Division, and their game wardens are trained to actually go into houses and do inspections and see what's the state of the animal and if anything needs to be addressed or even confiscated and put in a new home. I'd also say that sometimes we have some good friends in government, but sometimes the wheels don't move as quickly as possible. We also have some amazing coalition members that do take reports of animal welfare issues and often will intervene with owners to liberate and rehome really injured animals. So that's often happening with dogs and cats, but birds should be no different under law. So that's another great avenue. So getting the word out to TT Crime Stoppers or a group like Animal Welfare Network.
All right, thank you so much, Mark. I don't think there are any other questions right now, so we should be able to close out, Neve. But if there are any questions that we have missed or anything that you would like to ask Nurture Nature or Dr. Sant, feel free to message us. All right.
All
Yeah, I
right,
think that's it.
Great. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Kavita.
I'll try to switch over so that the last slide that you can see is our contact information for both the Nurture Nature campaign and Dr. Kavita Sant. So just give me 1 second, I'll pull that back up again.
Great. And then I'll just hit end here. Thank you everyone for attending. Neve, really nice job. Kavita, wonderful to hear from you again. That was brilliant.
No problem, anytime.
I'll just hit end here, guys.